Thank you for joining me today. It's Brian Gubernick, and welcome to the No Days Off podcast, where we believe that every single day brings a new opportunity to get better. There is a very dangerous stage in success that most do not talk about, that almost nobody warns you about. It is not the stage where you are lazy, it's not the stage where you simply stop caring. Those are different stages. It's not even the stage where you might lose some of your energy or passion or even work ethic. It is the stage where you are working hard, literally the opposite of what I just described, where you're working hard, where people depend on you, when the problems keep coming to you because you have a lot of the right answers, and where some part of you starts to really like that. You like being the person with the answer. You like being the one that can save the deal. You like being the one who can calm the client down, who can fix the issue, who can motivate the team, who can ultimately make the decision. And to be fair, for a lot of the No Days Off Nation, my guess is that's how success actually started for you. Early in business, brute force of that nature works. You make the calls, you solve the problems, you respond faster than everyone else. You outwork your competition. You take the late meetings or the early meetings or the weekend stuff, you clean up the mess. You step in when others cannot figure it out. And that intensity can really get you from zero to somewhere. But eventually you hit the ceiling of brute force. See, the ceiling of brute force is the point where your personal effort stops scaling. You can work harder, sure, but the business does not get much better. You can answer more messages, but the team does not really get much stronger. You can rescue the day over and over and over again, but the company just does not become more capable. This is the ceiling of brute force. At some point, you being the hero actually becomes the bottleneck. And the danger here is that this often disguises itself as leadership. I know I talk about getting on the field, leading from the front. So you can easily see how this is disguised sometimes as leadership because it sounds responsible and it sounds committed. It sounds like you have really high standards. So you're telling yourself, hey, they need me. Or you tell yourself, hey, no one else could do it, to this level. Or you even tell yourself, I'm protecting the business, or maybe even I'll delegate it when they're all ready. And sometimes, there is real truth in that, but sometimes it's not leadership. Sometimes it's frankly your ego. And it's an ego disguising itself as a work ethic. Because if you're always needed, you will feel important. If every major decision has to run through you, you will feel pretty powerful. If the team, frankly, cannot function without you, you are, by definition, pretty valuable. If you're the only one that could save the deal and calm the client, close the loop, you get to tell yourself a pretty comforting story. And that comforting story is that this place only works because of me. And that story feels good, but it's also really expensive because it costs team confidence and it costs speed of the organization. It costs you training future leaders and specifically their development. It costs you energy. And of course, all of those things added up, they really cost you growth. If you take a traditional, let's say, sales team, at first, the individual that started that sales team does everything. They recruit, they go on listing appointments, they save the transactions, you know the routine. And in the beginning, that might be necessary. But if 5 years later, the team still cannot run a sales meeting without that individual, without the leader, or they can't handle a tough client without the leader, or they can't onboard somebody without the leader, or they can't make a significant decision without the leader, then the leader is not actually leading the company. They are operating what I'm going to call a dependency machine. That again is the ceiling of brute force. You cannot build a great organization on the back of just one person's intensity. You have to build it by turning judgment into sound principles for that company, into turning standards into systems that can be replicated, turn the lessons into training, turn the decisions into repeatable rules. So the question is not, can I do this better than everyone else? Of course you can. You're the one that got the company off the ground. That is usually why you are, in fact, the leader. The better question is, can I build the conditions where other people can do this really well without me? And I believe that is a shift from what I was describing as ego earlier to more leadership. And for many of us, it's pretty painful because the moment you start building real leverage, you have to give up the drug of being needed all the time. You have to let someone else run the meeting or someone else solve the problem, someone else own the client relationship. You also have to allow a little imperfection today so you can create and develop capability tomorrow. And I think this is where it might fall apart for a lot of us. We recognize we may have to do this, but we may get scared. We may panic. We say we want to scale, but we can't tolerate the company maybe dropping a slight bit in quality that, frankly, that comes with developing people. And so we end up jumping back in and we fix things. We jump back in and we start proving again that we're still the best. But that is the exact problem we're talking about here. The goal of leadership is not to remain the most capable person in every room. The goal is to make the room more capable. And that requires a different sort of question. Instead of asking, how do I stay important? Ask, what does the business actually need from me now? And as the business grows, it increasingly needs your design. Your job becomes designing the system, designing the cadence, the scoreboard, the meeting rhythm, the decision framework, the training, and on and on and on. This is how you break through that ceiling of brute force. You don't do it by caring less. You do it by building more. You do it by working much more on the business than in the business. And there's a big difference here between being involved because you're uniquely valuable and being involved because the business is poorly designed. One, as I'm describing here, is leadership. The other is just dependency. And it's pretty easy to confuse the two. A leader may need to be involved in vision, key relationships, culture, major decisions, capital allocation. Those are very high leverage places. But if the leader is constantly needed for routine decisions, repeated questions, low level problems or even avoidable problems, even emotional reassurance, that's usually not leverage. That's probably a design flaw. That business is telling you something. It's telling you that the system is missing. The standard is unclear. The decision and who gets to make the decision, those rights are a bit fuzzy, a bit clouded. Or frankly, the wrong person is in the seat. The answer is not always, I need to jump in harder and start putting that hard hat back on again. Sometimes the answer is, I need to build what should have been there already. So here's your exercise for today. I want you to take out a piece of paper and I want you to write down 3 results in your business or your life that still depend too heavily on you. 3 results in your business or your life that still depend too heavily on you. Maybe it's in sales or recruiting or customer service. Maybe it's just bringing the energy. Maybe it's making every tough decision. In personal, maybe it's the quality of, your family calendar. Maybe it's whether the household runs smoothly. Now, next to each one of those 3, write this question. Am I required here because I add unique value or because I have failed to build the system? Am I required here because I add unique value or because I have failed to build the system? If you answer that question honestly, it might sting a little bit. Then I want you to pick one area and ask, what would have to exist for this to work without my brute force? What would have to exist for this to work without my brute force? Maybe it's a script or a scorecard or some sort of weekly stand up. Maybe it's just a better hire, a better handoff, a training video. I don't know. Lots of ideas here. Do not try to solve all of it. Just pick one place where your personal force is holding the whole thing together and replace a piece of that force with some structure. That's all I have for you today, the No Days Off podcast. Thank you so much for listening. And remember, every single day brings a new opportunity to get better. So let's get after it.